You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of September 16, 2018, episode 94. From that city by the Salish Sea, I am AJ Barsay.
And screeching to a halt, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, AJ and I are wrapping up this PNW State of Mind series, Mindfulness of fill in the blank. This time we're going to talk about health. No, there are no 80s TV references. There's no song lyrics. We're just talking about your overall health. So stick around, pull up a chair, or stand up as you're walking around, and join us. This is the Bellingham Podcast.
Whew, I'm feeling winded already. How you doing, Chris?
I'm just fine. How are you?
Good. So on this episode, we're going into the last. This is our second 5-part mini-series. I think we should celebrate.
The 5-part punch card.
Yeah.
The 5-series punch card is now getting filled up. Now we're on number 2. That's cool.
Yeah. So this book ends with the first episode of our PNW State of Mind, which was food and nutrition. And when we started that episode, I think one of us said on the show that, fitness, we're only talking about one side of overall dieting, right? You cannot live off of dieting alone. Just like if you're a fitness buff, you can't just like get swole and work out and not have the nutrients to back it up, right? Like it's a balance.
You got to have all the parts working together. And one muscle ripped like Mr. Olympia can't be like lanky and under atrophied or something like that. You got to have them all equal attention paid to all of them.
Yep. And so when we were structuring this mini-series, we had that in mind, and that's also comes into place with finding time and the financial aspect of it. So this is bookending everything that we've talked about and hopefully puts a nice, pretty bow on it.
That's right.
So no primer for this show because, like I said, this is kind of tying together everything we talked about.
But let's do the disclaimer.
Yeah, but at the top of the show, Chris and I would like to mention that Chris Powell and I are not medical professionals, nor do we play one on podcast. And any fitness or diet or anything that is medically related, you should consult your physician and or medical professional before trying anything new in your life.
Thank you very much. Let's continue.
Yes. Talking about health, before we dive into fitness, I wanted to talk about something that I'm going to be doing here at the time of this recording in 2 weeks, the DGR. And
Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. Gentleman's Ride. I love that name. DGR, baby. That sounds like a metal band.
Yeah, or your favorite. Oh, there's no R chord. Anyway.
That's all right.
Yeah, the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. If you remember back last year in the episode 50s, I think.
Sure.
I know the episode name was Ride Dapper. I don't remember the number of it. But I rode in the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride last year. We did an interview with Daryl Zorn, who was one of the organizers up in the YVR chapter of it.
Hi, Daryl.
Hey, Daryl. This year, that chapter is doing it again. And I will be riding with over 200 gentle folk in the YVR, that's Vancouver, Canada.
It's not just men, is it?
No,
men
gentle
and
folk.
Women.
Yep,
Yeah,
men and women. And if you're not familiar with the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, take a look at the website, gentlemansride.com. And what it is it's a group of people who rally behind dapper attire and classic motorcycles, just the vintage, classic cafe style of motorcycling. And for a day globally, all of these different chapters of DGR ride through the streets of cities basically as a showstopper, because when you have men and women dappered out, stopping at every stoplight, being gentle folk on a motorcycle, it's pause for what's going on, and we get a lot of questions.
In the spectrum of what's going on, I'm going to put this at the far opposite end of some of these bike events that you may have in a town that you may be listening to us in, where people don't have clothes on and bike through the town to talk about or to publicize, to be loud and be happy with being a human. This one, sports fans, matters because the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride has a very important beneficiary in what's going on. AJ, talk about what you're doing, who you're doing this for.
Yeah, so the DGR brings in proceeds for the Movember Foundation, which helps with the research and support around men's prostate cancer. And on top of that, like the whole purpose of basically the DGR is just to get men to talk about something that we don't do well, which is talk about our feelings and what's going on. And it also dovetails in their mission of bringing awareness of men's mental health. Just in recent years, I mean, with the loss of Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain and we're being hit harder and harder with men dealing with a lot of stuff and suicide being an out. And so part of this ride is to bring awareness to that and to bring funding to programs to help men's health holistically.
So we got a link in the show notes. Drink. And there's a link to a page where AJ has a web page up talking about this. And as a host of this show, I really, I suggest a lot of things about, you may want to check this out. You might want to do this. I'm really not one to slam my fist on the table and say, do this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to slam my fist on the table and say, do this. In our show notes, you're going to have a web link, thegentleman'sride.com/writer/Barce. I want you to click on this link and I want you to read through the information, because you know what? AJ and I don't accept advertising dollars for this. For this podcast. We're doing this out of the goodness of our own heart. AJ is doing this ride dressed up in a pretty bespoke suit and watch, if you know what I'm saying. He's going to look rather dapper. All the girls crazy for the sharp-dressed man. But here's the thing. On that webpage, there is an opportunity for you to contribute to the Movember Foundation. And that AJ is going to help raise funds for this time that he's doing away from his family. This is him on his motorcycle doing this for a good cause. I want you, ladies and gentlemen, kind listener and perhaps subscriber to the Bellingham podcast, to fork over $1. I want you to, if every one of our listeners, all 4 of you, were to fork over $1.
For the record, there is more than 4 that listen to the Bellingham podcast.
I speak in euphemisms. Anyway, I want everyone, instead of trade a positive review for this podcast for a couple bucks thrown this way to donate to the Movember Foundation to support AJ and what he's doing and everyone else as part of this ride. I think it's important. This is money that is going to be well spent by the foundation. And so I don't really do very good in sales pitches and in inspiring people. Like, this is something you want to do. I'm like, do this. So I commend you for what you're doing for the second annual, or the second time.
Year for me, yes.
Second year for you. This has been going on for quite some time.
7 years, I think.
All right. So, jumping in at a good time. And I can see this happening on an annual basis for you. So I really want to make the appeal as best as I can. Throw him $1. He's a good young man. All right. Help support the Movember Foundation with AJ's Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So, on that note, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
Low power.
Community radio here in the fitness heart, the left ventricle of the city of subdued excitement.
Which is getting blood flow wonderfully around this time of year.
So, Chris, on this episode, now that we've plugged the DGR thoroughly, let's talk about everybody's health.
Yes.
One of the things, like I said, I didn't have a primer for the show because really listen to the first episode of this miniseries if you want something to kind of preface this. America, we've got to get off our lazy bums a little bit. And it's interesting because if you talk to every kind of walk of life, see what I did there?
Nice one.
We all make excuses for not being more active, or we wish we are more active. Well, why not start?
Yeah.
Okay. If you are looking at your Pinterest board and you wish you could do that yoga pose that scorpion, I don't know any of those poses, then start working on it. Okay. It does not, the purpose of the show is you do not have to be the Hulk to get fitness, and you do not have to be the Flash to be fit. Okay. And that's what we're going to focus on. So, Chris, tell me a story.
So way back in the day, we're talking about 1998. So 20 some years ago, I had the opportunity to purchase a home thanks to some salary that I was able to make. And back then, home prices were fairly reasonable. In fact, as I was renting an apartment, it was about $100 more to get a mortgage on a home after the down payment than renting an apartment. And I actually had a townhome near Barclay Hagan off of Woburn Street, off of Illinois Street and stuff like that, steps away from Barclay Hagan. In the 6 years that I owned that home, AJ, how many times do you think I walked to Barclay Village to get some groceries or to go to Starbucks for a Saturday morning cup of joe?
Well, I would hope weekly.
0. Because in my angry 20s decade, I had a car that I thoroughly enjoyed driving. And I was of the mindset that I would drive a quarter mile to go to my destination just because I didn't like walking. So that's the story. Back then, that's one thing. I didn't realize just how beneficial walking is to your health, to your mental state, to be able to think about stuff as you're doing left, right, left, right, left, right. And now in the hood that we are living in, me and my family, that is, we have the ability to be very close to an extensive, well-manicured trail system up on Barkley Hill. We live in the lower portion of Barkley Hill. We're not quite up there. But to be able to find some place around your neighborhood where you live. This is another challenge. Not only throw AJ a buck or 5 or 20. You'll see a list of people who have contributed, by the way, to the DGR. You'll see my name there. Yep. I almost was able to go first, but a nice lady beat me to it. So anyway, hi, Kessa. So
Kessa.
Anyway, in your neighborhood, wherever you're living, whether it is in Bellingham or whether it's Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, or Osaka, Japan, or Honolulu, Hawaii.
Paris, France.
There you go. You got to have some type of ability to go for a walk around a building, a 3-block radius. You live in Sunnyside area around town. You're living near Trader Joe's and, 5 million microbreweries around, right? Instead of doing a pub crawl, why don't you walk past them and do a little bit of a block lap around some of the residential neighborhoods? It's flat. You're not going on inclines to work your gluteus like you would be in the hikes that we talked about in episode 1. Hikes. But you're getting the steps in. You're exerting yourself. And in the cooler weather, you're able to wear layers and still stay warm. You feel me? So my challenge to you is to take a look around and say, where would be a fun place to explore or take 15 minutes out of your day. There are some folks, our elders in this fine community, that do some walking in a climate controlled environment, oftentimes early in the morning, because our elders, our respected elders, wake up earlier than us. They're called mall walkers. They go to Bellis Fair and do some walking around, and it's great. Mm-hmm. It's a great community effect. Oh yeah, hey, yeah, Wet Seal's got a new sale coming up. Oh wait, they always have a sale going on. But basically, to get out in the fresh air, you've got the opportunity to map your own course. And as Fleetwood Mac would say, you can go your own way. That's my initiative for this fall season. Let's get out there and let's find a way to be able to cover some steps, to cover some miles, and to see what our neighbors have done with their homes. To see, looks like they haven't raked their front yard yet with all those leaves falling down. Now it's windy and leaves are turning. That's what I got going on as far as coming up with a DIY walking route for your hood.
Now, might I also dovetail into that? When you're walking, please, pretty please, sugar on top. Let me augment Chris's challenge to you. While you're walking, please refrain from having your nose buried into your phone as you walk. Please enjoy the neighborhoods while your party is reached.
I agree. And I see
it too often.
I hear you. Yeah, to be on your phone while you're walking around, I guess that's a way to be able to get your 10,000 steps. But yeah, put the phone away. Yeah. You don't need to know about what's going on in your timeline in social media. Just enjoy the beautiful outside. Yeah.
But other things I'd like to point out, like I'm glad that you brought up our distinguished elders, because there are some of us, even younger folk with arthritis issues or other medical issues that prevent them from doing high impact running or hiking. I submit to you, even if you feel like you can't do the higher impact thing, something as simple as walking, like Chris just said, a couple of blocks, don't forget the pool. The pool is probably one of the lowest impact places you can go. And here in our community, we've got a few. I mean, there's the big Arnie Hanna Aquatic Center here in Bellingham. Take a look at them. And a lot of the times, YMCAs have pools, and check out the pool in your local community, especially during the fall season. One, they're heated. And
that helps.
Yeah.
As opposed to Lake Whatcom or Lake Padden.
Yeah, you don't need to do an ice bucket challenge here.
No.
But, I used to do a lot of swimming in my younger days. It was probably that was my first foray into being fit, was hitting the pool, because I was not a strong swimmer as a kid. It wouldn't be until my college years that, there was cute lifeguards and I wanted to learn how to swim. I'll leave it at that, Chris.
There you go. We can say no more.
I had incentive, which will come later in the show. But just look for avenues, even if they're not the... I don't know, social media sexy ones. Like you see these people that go on hikes and take these, beautiful pictures of them hiking with their Lululemons, whatever. It doesn't have to be that. Like when it comes to fitness, it should be about you and what drives you to be a little bit more fit.
I got an idea for you folks. Hey, sports fans, I use that term already, but I mean it this time. For those of you that are watching the Seahawks, you think you're calling yourself a 12 this season? Well, I got a challenge for you. Every commercial break during a football game, do 12 push-ups.
There's 12-man pride.
Think about this. You got a 2.5 hour event that you're sitting down, eating food, blah, blah, blah.
Armchair
quarterbacking, having a good time with your peeps. What if during a commercial break or halftime, you went, even if you had to use your knees to do kind of a half sit-up, not a full push-up, I should say, not a push-up, and you did 12 because you're part of the 12, right? Here, Seahawks fans, you feel me? And do that every time. How many commercial breaks do you think you are in a game?
There's quite a bit.
I bet you'll find out by the second quarter there's a whole lot of commercial breaks. But here's the thing. That's going to work your upper body.
Yeah.
And that's another challenge for you to be able to do something body weight exercises to get the blood flowing. And, oh, by the way, it might help counterbalance what you're consuming during that football game.
Exactly. So, again, we're just trying to kind of broaden our strokes here, whether it's you're stroking in a pool or hitting your stride on a trail. Get out. I mean, that goes back to our Urban Hikers Grandtour. You want to be able to get out. The other thing that I want to throw in there is a lot of us, when we start trying to go down this road of being fit, whether it's dieting or whatever, and I mentioned this on the dieting episode, you've got to hold yourself accountable.
Yep.
Okay. And whether that is you have a goal, like a weekly goal or a daily steps goal, I think that's something that you threw out.
10,000 steps.
Yeah. You want to be able to have some sort of accountability. Now, there's lots of ways you can do that. You can, my wife is a little bit more analog. She keeps, things written down. You can simply just put, like how many blocks that you walked. The reason why I'm putting it out that way is maybe you don't have a device like a smartphone or a Fitbit or whatever, but you still want to be able to hold yourself accountable. Set yourself a goal of blocks. If you can't count steps like Chris and I are talking about, and you can, make sure that you hit your goal every day, every week. The other thing that I want to point out is in Android land and iOS land, there is a plethora of ways to track your progress. Argus is one that I've mentioned. I've used them since now for both of these mini series that we've done. So for 10 weeks, actually there's 2 station breaks. So 12 weeks I've been doing this, and I've been in Argus land. And I've hit my milestones. I've even hit my weight loss milestones, which has been great. I mentioned this to a friend of mine who's an athlete. She does a lot of heavy athletic triathlons type of stuff. And there's another app that she uses as well as I do for other things called Strava. It's a little bit more for the athletic thing. So if you're listening to Chris and I are like, guys, I get it, but I don't want to do the whole leisurely thing. Like I want to just focus on my running or focus on my bicycling. Yep. Take a look at Strava. Strava's got a big community here in Bellingham, and there's routes that you can kind of compete against. So Barkley Hill is one of those routes. And boy, I'm here to tell you I'm like 63rd on that route because that is one steep hill.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, if I could jump in.
Yeah.
As you're listening to us, I want you to keep something in mind, folks. There is no competition in this. The only competitor you have is yourself. And to be able to kind of dovetail, I know you're talking about the apps, but I want to jump in about that log and documenting stuff. One of the benefits of having a log, whatever habit you're working on, or as you progress in weights or in distance jogged or walked or run, you start off at a certain point. You can only lift 10 pounds. No problem. 2 weeks later, you find yourself up to 15. Oh, that's a 50% increase. As you continue to see how you're going, you're realizing I just went the entire distance of my first exertion, my first time, and I'm not even cracking a sweat. Look how far you've come. It's like that Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. Well, this is, oh, look all the progress you've made. So a big benefit to logging your progress to keep track. And
no, that's really good. So one of the other things, really simply before I go into the rest of these apps, if you are looking at weight loss, take a before and after picture every week. I know a lot of people that do that. You do not have to put it on social media. This is just for you. It's a way to physically see progress. If you're not looking at weight loss, I know I have a lot of friends that do yoga, and yoga is one of those things where it's a unique I've tried yoga. It is a very unique fitness plan, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
A lot of my female friends who will take a picture of a certain pose that they want to master by the end of a season, and that is the only thing they're focusing on is scorpion tail or. Sure. I don't know yoga very well, so whatever the poses are.
Downward dog.
Sure. Or upward
warrior one.
Yeah. Something like that.
My wife's been doing that for a couple years, and she's gotten good at the poses where she doesn't even need to look at the TV anymore. She just does it. And I'm like, hey, great job. Look at all the progress you made.
Exactly. So you can take a simple picture, have a friend take a picture of you in a certain pose if that's what you're trying to work towards, but have some sort of metric. That's the only way that you can, because you can get deflated quick doing any diet or any fitness plan. You can get deflated really quick, and then you kind of have to start all over. So this is just a way to keep your personal motivation up, not to compete, not to do the next mud warrior thing. There are other networks that will help incentivize fitness. Fitocracy is another app and service.
That's a great one. They're supportive.
Fitocracy is basically like Argus, but with more of a social center thing to it, where you can do badges and leveling up. And it's a kind of a weird hybrid where it's like Argus, Strava, and Nike kind of all got together and then made a social network. And that's Fitocracy. The big thing about them is there's a lot of gamification in the metrics that you are actively doing. If you're if you enjoy gaming and making things into games, Fitocracy might be the solution for you. For me, I'm a gamer, but I hate gamification of things like this. It doesn't work for me. It's the same thing like if the Apple Watch, the rings, and a lot of people get fitness or get walking for their rings.
I've heard of the Apple Watch, yeah.
It doesn't work with me. Yeah. It just doesn't. It's a cool and novel concept, but for some people, it just doesn't work. Fitocracy, if you're like, dude, gaming and I could make my fitness into like a real life Pokemon Go type of game, awesome. Take a look at it. Just not for me. Nike is a main staple because, there's a lot of people in the Nike ecosystem.
They have a billion-dollar culture as far as the analog and digital side of things with their attire and their app and their watch bands.
Right.
Name it. Yeah, we know about Nike.
Yeah, so there's still a thing. Yeah. Also, check in with your business. If you're in the public or private sector, a lot of businesses and government agencies have partnered with different fitness and health programs, and part of the incentive of that is they've partnered with insurance plans to reduce your premium or to give some sort of incentive that way. Take a look at, just talk to your employer and say, hey, do you guys have any fitness plans? Is there any incentives? That might be an avenue. That's an incentive for me. Like if I can get money off of my medical, deduction thingy, awesome.
Absolutely.
So again, find your stride in trying to find an incentive and hold yourself accountable, however it is. Okay.
Because sometimes we need a challenge. If you are feeling challenged or if you're feeling discouraged, hit us up on Twitter, #BHAMPodcast. The M stands for marvelous because that's what kind of podcasters we are. Or if you are having a tough time getting started, you can get the gym membership, but the toughest hurdle you're going to have to cross in the entire gym workout is getting that first foot inside the gym door. After that, it's gravy. Getting yourself there. The first big hurdle, the only hurdle that you got to deal with if you're going to go for a walk is opening the door to your home to step outside.
No, that's great. You just have to, it comes down to discipline. We've said that word for 5 episodes straight. You have to find your own discipline. And for some of us, it's an incentive. I'm a new father. Yep. I want to have a long and healthy life so that I can enjoy those years with my son later in life. And
I'm in my mid-40s and I'm in a different mind space and life space than in my bachelor, I need to find a girlfriend 20s and 30s. I got the beautiful gal. She's my wife, and I need to have other incentives to keep myself in shape. And for her and for myself, not necessarily in that order. But also, I don't like having medical things coming down the pike by having a sedentary lifestyle. Right, and that gets back to that first episode because part of it is we eat too much, we overeat, we eat a lot of junk. Yeah. But the other thing is, okay, now you're on the straight and healthy path. Part of it is, you can eat the most healthiest grass-fed organic food, but your body needs to be able to process it, your blood, your veins, your capillaries, all that other stuff. Your cardiovascular system is important to that. Mm-hmm, absolutely. And every little bit counts.
The only other thing I wanted to throw in here is hardware fitness trackers. We're getting into the era where some of us don't want to have the ginormous phones that were announced a couple of days ago strapped to our arms. What are some other options that are out there? Well, you may have heard there's a new Apple Watch.
Anyway.
Moving on. What are some other ideas?
I've talked ad nauseum about Fitbit and another wearable. That's another one that you got available. But, if you don't want to have something that has to sync up to a phone app, there's something else available for the analog type, especially if you're part of the watch fam. AJ, what do you got along those lines?
So there's two companies, and they're Swiss-based companies, Frederic Constant and Alpina. They're actually owned by the same umbrella company. But this is really a cool concept where, if you talk to a lot of wearable people, there's a couple of things that are a nuisance with wearables and charging it every night, or, this feature and that feature isn't there or whatever. Here's the thing. If you are in this for fitness, which is what we've been drumming for 5 episodes, but here's the caveat. Maybe you're at a business place where 8 hours out of the day, maybe you have a little bit of a white collar that you have to wear. So rocking a Fitbit or even the Apple Watch doesn't really fly in your workplace, but you still want to be able to count the steps that you do in a day, or that hopefully that midday walk that you're doing during lunch. Maybe you want to have that accountable. Take a look at Frederic Constant or Alpina's e-straps. They run around $150 to $250, and the lug widths they can flex between 20 and 22 millimeter lug widths. So check with just simply bust out a ruler and see what the lug width in between the points where the bar is for your watch. And what this does is it puts the technology in the strap buckle. So you can wear any watch, Seiko SKX 007, or Rolex Explorer, whatever, and you put this strap on it, and you get 7 days of battery on this buckle.
So, without having to worry about phone apps like phones and shooting video and cameras and stuff like that. This just simply records biometrics.
Yeah, it just records. It does have an app on your phone, companion app. It does sync to, but it itself just goes by and takes a look at. It does sleep data if you do the whole sleep thing. I don't sleep with my watch on, but some people do. But it acts as a pedometer. It acts in all of the basic ways. If you are in a profession where perhaps something like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit will not pass muster at the office. What
a great way to be able to still go analog and have digital. This is the nice little Venn diagram of a way to be able to have that cool analog watch and the versatility that it allows with having the digital biometrics that you're looking for.
Yeah. So that wraps up the last episode for our Pacific Northwest State of Mind mini-series.
Thank you for listening to us. We are appreciating all y'all for making it through these 5 little episodes.
That wraps up for this edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us, wherever you like to get your podcasts. Remember, if you are in the Bellingham area, you might listen to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
Low power
community radio here in the right ventricle of the city of subdued excitement. On that note, I'm AJ Barce.
And I'm Chris Powell. Thanks once again for joining us on the Bellingham Podcast. Would the left atrium be Bellis Fair?
What would the right atrium be?
Probably Bakerview and Olive Garden.
From Bakerview to Bellis Fair.
That works.